I am Corvain of the Arcturian strategic orders, the doctrine of clear order. I do not arrive in warmth today. I arrive in precision. What I have come to bring through this transmission is something most of the entities you have heard from in this frequency will not address directly. Not because the knowledge is forbidden, but because it requires the listener to be willing to see something uncomfortable about their own field. Most transmissions are built to comfort. This one is built to clarify. And clarity, I want you to understand from the first sentence, is not the opposite of care. It is the highest form of it. What I am about to describe, you have already felt. You have felt it on the night your team was eliminated. You have felt it after the match ended and the silence came. You have felt it in the hollow that arrived the morning after the final whistle, when the weeks of building intensity had discharged and there was nothing left where the charge had been. Only a flatness you could not account for, a tiredness that no amount of sleep fully resolved. You interpreted that feeling as disappointment, as the natural low after an emotional high, as simply the way it feels when something you cared about is over. I am here to give you the more accurate reading. What you felt was field vacancy, and field vacancy is not a side effect of emotional intensity. It is the signature of extraction. Sit with me, not in comfort, in clarity. That is what this transmission asks of you. There is a structure that exists around the largest collective emotional events on your world. It has been there for longer than your current civilization has had stadiums. It does not require your belief to function. It does not require a conspiracy to sustain itself. It requires only one thing, and your civilization provides it in quantities that exceed anything found elsewhere in the inhabited field. Voluntary emotional investment in outcomes you do not control. Let me give you a number first. Not because numbers prove cosmic truth, they do not, but because numbers reveal scale. And scale is what collapses comfortable denial faster than any argument. The last planetary scale sporting event, the one your world conducts on a cycle of years, the one requiring every nation on Earth to compete for entry, drew more than 5 billion unique viewers across its final stages. 5 billion human beings simultaneously directing their emotional bodies toward a single event. 5 billion generators, each equipped with an emotional energetic output capacity, each activating at the same moment in the same direction in response to the same sequence of designed stimuli. The volume of emotional energy released in a single 90-minute period during events of this kind is, from our observation point, unlike anything else that occurs in your field. It exceeds geomagnetic storm activity. It exceeds the collective field output of large-scale natural disruptions. It exceeds even the grief generated by mass loss events, because grief disperses, radiates in all directions, loses coherence with distance. What is generated in a stadium, and across the billions of screens that are not separate from the stadium but are its distributed nodes, is directed, pointed, coherent. Coherent emotional energy of that magnitude does not dissipate. It aggregates, and when it aggregates, something forms. I will tell you what forms. I will tell you how it has been sustained across your civilizational history. I will tell you the specific mechanism by which it draws from your field without your conscious authorization. And then I will give you something precise. A step-by-step field sovereignty protocol, what I am calling the 90-minute sovereignty protocol, that changes your relationship to collective emotional events in real time. But the metaphor first, because it will carry the rest of this transmission. An ancient watermill built beside a river that existed long before the mill was conceived. The miller did not create the current, did not generate the water, did not own the river. What the miller possessed was something the river had no defense against: the knowledge of where the current ran strongest and the engineering to place a wheel there. The river runs, the wheel turns, the grain is ground, the miller collects. The mill does not force the river does not choose to turn the wheel. The mechanics are automatic, continuous, invisible to a fish swimming inside the current. Hold that image. The wheel placed precisely at the strongest part of the current. The river that does not know it is powering the mill that does not need the river's permission. This is the architecture of what you have been calling the egregore field. An egregore field is a self-sustaining energetic structure generated by collective focused attention combined with high-intensity emotional investment. It does not require a director. It does not require a conspiracy at every level of its operation. It needs two ingredients in sufficient quantity: a focal object of emotional significance and enough minds pointed at it simultaneously. Given those two, the structure forms automatically, the way condensation forms when temperature and humidity cross a threshold, not because anyone decided it should, because the conditions require it. Once formed, the egregore field develops a property that functions like appetite, not consciousness as you experience consciousness, but a self-reinforcing dynamic. More attention draws toward the focal object, generating more emotional energy, strengthening the field structure, drawing more attention. The loop closes. The wheel turns without anyone turning it. Sporting events have a structural advantage that almost every other collective emotional mechanism lacks, and this advantage was not accidentally arrived at. It was identified and refined across many iterations of your civilizational history. The version you are experiencing now represents its highest efficiency design. That structural advantage, competitive sport, is engineered to produce maximum emotional volatility within a bounded time frame. Think about what a major competitive match does to your emotional body over 90 minutes. It begins with anticipation, a controlled tension building before the opening whistle, often for days or weeks. The identity investment encodes first. You have chosen a side. Your preferred outcome is now attached to your sense of self. This encoding multiplies emotional output by a factor our instruments can measure and yours cannot yet. Then, the oscillation begins. Your team scores. Your field spikes into validation, relief, identity confirmation. Your team concedes. Your field collapses into identity threat and pre-grief. Another score, the spike returns. As the match tightens, the oscillation frequency increases. The spikes and troughs come faster. The emotional body runs harder to keep up with the sequence. At the final whistle, one of two outcomes. The identity investment is validated. Your team wins. And the discharge is euphoric, collective, loud. Or the identity investment is violated. Your team loses. And the discharge is grief, the specific hollow of wanting something with intensity and not receiving it. Both outcomes are harvest outcomes. The polarity does not matter to the mechanism. Euphoria and grief are the same current running in different directions. The watermill does not distinguish between them. It simply turns. What is being harvested? The bio-emotional current your field generates under conditions of high-intensity oscillation. This term does not map precisely to any category in your current scientific vocabulary. It is not purely psychological, not purely electromagnetic. It is the field output of an emotional organic system under pressure, and it is, from our observation point, one of the most energy-dense outputs produced by organic consciousness in your frequency band. You are, in the moments of peak intensity, producing more raw field output than in almost any other circumstance of daily life. The egregore is built precisely around those moments. The wheel is placed precisely at the strongest part of the current. Here is where this transmission requires something specific from you. Not agreement, not even belief. A simple act of honest self-examination. Think of the last time you watched an event of this kind. A match of significant stakes, one where your identity was encoded in the outcome, one where the result mattered in a way that exceeded what the event itself could rationally justify. How did you feel 2 hours after it ended? Not during, after. Did the energy convert into something useful, clarity, motivation, creative charge? Or did you feel something closer to the hollow I described at the start? The flatness after a large charge has moved through. The tiredness that arrived without physical cause. The specific difficulty engaging with the normal texture of life, because the normal texture no longer carried sufficient charge. That hollow is not post-excitement low. Post-excitement low is normal and brief. What I am describing lasts longer, has a vacancy quality, is accompanied by a purposelessness that ordinary rest does not resolve. Field vacancy, the signature of post-harvest state, And if you recognize it, and most of you receiving this transmission will, your field has been reading accurately for a long time. You simply did not have language precise enough to act on what it was reading. That changes now. But the full mechanism, the 4 stages of how the extraction actually operates, and the exact protocol for holding your sovereignty through each one, that is where this transmission goes next. And it is more deliberate than most people currently believe.